Let's dive into Queensryche. So you had mentioned meeting different members. So the band officially formed in 1982, but you already knew the members since the late 70s. You mentioned the EP that you guys recorded. Is it true when it comes to naming the band that so you mentioned you were originally called The Mob, and
Right.
then as you were looking for a new band name, you're having a little bit of trouble, and you already had the one song on the EP, Queen of the Reich, and you thought, hey, if we kind of merge that title, we have a pretty good band name. Is that the history of the band name with the song?
Pretty much. You know, Chris DeGarmo came with the idea. It was some dream he had, um, but you know, he suggested, why don't we, take from the first song and put it together and spell it differently.
Yeah.
And that's how it was derived. And um, changing the spelling, putting the umlauts on, and you know, we didn't know what they meant, and we just tried to make it look cool.
That's funny. So you guys recorded and released the EP independently. What kind of opportunities presented themselves once you had this physical product that you could give out like a business card that was undeniable to show that, hey, we're talented and you guys should get behind us, whether it's booking us for a show or finding management or finding a label.
Yeah, I mean, once the EP came out, I mean, the records sold really well, and we had some favorable reviews. I remember Kerrang gave us a great review in their Armed and Ready section, and um, and that's news travels fast, to the record companies. So then, um, we started uh, touring and not playing the clubs, but our first couple shows were in the Paramount in Portland and Seattle, and we were playing with a band called Zebra, and we got to open up for them, and that's kind of how it all started, and everything just took off from there. Um, and because we did really well in selling cassettes and albums, that's when we locked in with EMI America at the time, and they signed us, and we got some tour support money and started
That's
touring,
always nice.
and yeah, the only thing is you have to pay it back. But yeah, and we just started uh, making our way as a touring rock band.
And you guys were only like 17 to 19 years old during the recording and release of this EP, somewhere
Yeah,
in there.
yeah, I was. Um, yeah, we were young,
And
and it's like,
do you think that worked in your favor because you're just like hopelessly optimistic, about the future, just young and naive and just we're gonna do this?
yeah, I mean, it's we didn't know much about the record industry or anything as far as business wise how we could make a living doing it. It just kind of just happened, and it happened very fast. And we had to take advantage of opportunities, and we did, and we took off.
And what thoughts, memories, emotions come back to you now when you think of that period of time around that EP? I mean, if you look at the career you've had, everything stems back to the success of that EP. I mean, it must be this amazing time when you think about it.
Yeah, I mean, it was a great time. It was the early '80s, and music was a great career. Once MTV started, and more record companies started popping up, and it was and people were buying albums. Yeah, it was awesome.
And do you remember the first time you heard the band's music on radio? I'm assuming it's from Queen of the Reich, but maybe it came from the debut album after.
No, it was um, when we were working our day job at that place that we were making those transformers, for hair dryers. Um, we were in the back warehouse and they had a radio on, and I remember um, it was I think KZOK, and we heard because we had recorded this, we had a cassette of the four songs and hadn't done anything really with it, and all of a sudden we start hearing bum bum. I'm going, oh my God, that's Queen of the Reich on the record. And we start telling, our bosses and managers and everything, that's us. And they said, that's not you. That sounds like some band from England or Europe, that's not you. And I remember, after we started getting radio airplay, we quit our day jobs.
That's amazing. So you mentioned with the success of the demo, you guys get signed to EMI, you start to have a little bit of support on tour. You ended up touring with Quiet Riot and Twisted Sister. There's a show with Dio as well. What was it like way back then, that early on in your career, to be able to play with these legendary bands? I don't know if they're already legendary at that point, but they're definitely legendary now.
Right. I mean, it's, they were opportunities, and we were sponges. We were learning the industry as you go. The um, lots of mistakes are made, and that's how you learn. But we um, got these opportunities to play with these bands, and it was, all of a sudden it's like, all right, I think we're legitimate now.
So as we wrap up talking about the demo and we move on to the major label debut, I just had two things I want to share that I thought were amazing. Number one is Rock Hard Magazine put out a list of the 500 greatest rock and metal albums of all time, and they had the demo at number 336 on this list. So for me, it's Black Sabbath and Tool and Metallica, the greatest albums ever, and your demo made this list. Some of your other albums made it as well, but how crazy is that?
Yeah, it's we were kind of known as the musicians band. All the musicians that we toured with and that we met and everything knew about us. We hadn't exploded yet. So, and because we were, kind of a guitar band, uh, we were just known as, where we toured because we were opening up for bigger bands.
So the other thing that blew my mind is this independent four-song demo went on to go gold in the US, selling over 500,000 copies. Uh, did you ever think that was even possible? That's like a shocking number of sales of a demo.
Yeah, I mean, it's, obviously as the other albums came out, the sales increased on all the prior.
The back catalog.
But I think it was uh, Rage for Order or Mindcrime when everything else started going gold.
So you guys signed with EMI with a major label in 1984. You release your major label debut, The Warning. This album also goes gold, selling 500,000 copies in the U.S. alone. The single "Take Hold of the Flame" was an international hit, specifically in Japan. Why do you think it took off in Japan of all places?
I don't know. I think we made a big impact going to Japan and playing and um, doing a video over there, and the fans just really grasped uh, the early music like that, and the hard rock music, and but it was like that pretty much everywhere we went. It was, we were the hot band of the moment.
And is there a different vibe playing to a crowd in Japan versus, I don't know, the US or Canada or somewhere? Can you actually feel a different vibe in different
Oh
countries?
yeah, I mean the Japanese audiences were very polite, very
Okay.
orderly. Um,
Like a polite applause after each song, or
right, yeah, not it's like very quiet during in between songs. Whereas the US, everybody's, gung ho and having fun and partying um, but it's different everywhere. Um, Generally, like the South American crowds are very passionate about their music,
Mm.
um,
Th-
and
Does
it's
that
just
show up in the form of like moshing or crowd surfing? How does the passion kind of come out? Screaming, singing?
it's yeah, they would sing our guitar solos.
Oh, wow. That's cool for you.
Yeah, yeah. We'd we'd start some of the shows with Anarchy X and Revolution Calling, and the double solos in there. They would sing those.
That's awesome.
That's
Uh,
pretty awesome.
yeah, here in Canada, Montreal is known as having the best crowds. At least in Canada, and anytime I've gone to shows in Montreal, the crowds are just insane. Have you experienced that in Montreal at all?
Oh yeah, I mean, we love coming to Canada and playing, but obviously the bigger cities are more where it's happening. And yeah, we love Montreal. We have a lot of fun there.
Amazing. So the warning comes out. This makes Metal Hammer's 13th best power metal album of all time. It's funny how some say, oh, this album is hair metal or power metal or prog metal. Like there's such specific names they attach instead of just saying metal. Does it bother you when they call it different things? Do you just think like, oh, this is just heavier music? Does it, when there's all these labels, do you care about that?
Not really. I mean, to us, our music is personal and can't really describe it. It's just, you know, it's what we are as far as our influences and how we write and everything. And, um, we're a little bit metal. We're a little bit prog. We're melodic. Um, so, but, we're kind of in our own little genre, I guess.
And is it true that the mixing of the album, The Warning, near the end of the recording process was kind of taken out of the band's hand? They had somebody mix it, and you guys have never really been happy with the way the mix sounds. Is that true, or is it that stuff of lore?
Well, the warning was recorded with James Guthrie,
This
who,
is Pink Floyd, right?
yeah, he worked on the wall, and we had something very special going on, and yeah, but uh, EMI heard this, and they had invested in this, and they wanted someone that was less experimental, I guess, and more pop oriented to mix the album, and so it got taken away from James. That's kind of it. It was more kind of sad, I guess. But the songs stand on their own, and the guy that did it, Val Garay, did a great job. And but yeah, I mean, it is what it is, and it's the songs have taken on a new life, and um, so. But yeah, I mean, it's. I have a cassette somewhere of the James Guthrie mix, and the songs kind of were in a different order, and they had different, lots of cool stuff in them, So, uh, but the tapes they get old, and it's you wouldn't be able to transfer it, but nothing digital or anything. So, but yeah, that was a great album, and for us, and it was a good learning process. Um, but yeah, after after that, it was like okay, and then it was just back to business, touring and touring and touring and touring. We just toured all the time.
Do you think because of that example where the mix kind of went out of your hands to someone else, was that a lesson learned that we should try to take a little more control, if possible, of our recordings afterwards? Like not owning the, owning the masters, which is what labels do, but having more of a final say when it comes to the mixing and mastering and those things.
Yeah, I mean, the bottom line, the money talks. If you're you know getting investment from the record company, they're going to have some say in what you're doing. So yeah, we had to learn that. That was, oh, that's how it works. Okay, yeah. Oh, it's kind of like getting a loan at the bank.
Yeah, they're expecting that back plus profit. So
But yeah, I mean, it's you're there to make music, and that's the focus.
So in 1986, you guys release your second major label album, Rage for Order. Again, this goes gold, selling 500,000 copies in the US. This was the first album to feature your famous Tri-Reich logo. Is there a story of how that came to be? I've heard rumors it's like based on the shape of a bird or something. Any truth to this?
Well, if you look at the EP and you look at the border around the picture on the back, you'll see in the corners a kind of a crude version of the Tri-Reich, and then
Mm.
um, it kind of came in other shapes and forms, but then it was like, okay, let's you know this is a good symbol for the band. Let's market it and put it on the album cover, so the front cover, and it's I don't know the origins of this, the symbol. It may Other people may know, where it originally came from, but yeah, it's just kind of stuck with us,
It was kind of there right from the start on that demo.
right? It was, yeah, and it's become, obviously, just a symbol of the band Queensryche, and it's cool, right? So it's like people get that tattooed on their arms and backs, and wherever, and um, it's just synonymous with us.
Is someone getting the logo tattooed on their body kind of the highest level of um praise you can get? I mean, that's their body, it's forever. I feel like that's such an honor.
Yeah, I mean, it's on social media, we have someone that collects all these photos of everybody's tattoos, and and they post that, and it's amazing. You know, it's pretty amazing.
So it's really hard for bands to sound unique with the amount of music that's created globally. I mean, how can you actually sound unique when there's so much music and so many people? But in your case, you guys from the start have had a very unique sound, um, blending different genres and with your proficiency on your instruments. How important was it for you guys right from the start to try to create something unique versus kind of copying what's popular at the time?
Yeah, I think we made a conscious effort to stay away from the whole rock star image and that kind of thing. We wanted to be considered musicians, and so let the music do the talking, that kind of thing. Um, and that's kind of how we just ran with it. Um, and it's uh, as far as the cosmic ability and influences of everybody in the band to make this type of music. It's pretty amazing because it's it's everybody's input that makes it so great and so unique. Um, and and you realize that you have something special.
So
Definitely.
we have a fan question sent in from Kirk Thanasis. His question is, do you plan to re-release Rage of Order on vinyl and add extra tracks from the demos of that album?
Uh,
Maybe he's trying to wish this into existence.
well, when I think EMI remastered it, they put other live tracks on the CDs, um, but those old albums are owned by the record company. So what they used to do, basically, whenever we release an album, then they would re-release, one of the old ones, like with a remastered version, or with extra songs on it. And um, but you know, I think if there's anything that we do that we want to recreate, it would be obviously live versions. I don't think we would re-record anything. I'm not into that. I think what we have done is the way it should be. I don't want to go back and erase things.
That makes sense. In 1988, you guys released Operation Mindcrime. I mentioned in the intro, this is widely considered one of the greatest metal albums of all time. This is considered the band's breakthrough. It cracked the top 50 on the Billboard 200 charts, and it's the band's first platinum album, selling over 1 million copies in the US. Do you remember receiving the news that the album had gone platinum? That must be, I mean, what a phone call that would be to receive.
Oh yeah, I mean this basically all happened because of MTV. They had a metal shop, and they were premiering um, Eyes of a Stranger, and it caught on, and that's when we started colliding with public taste, um, and like you said, it went gold, and then it went platinum, and then all the other albums before it went gold or platinum, and um, bigger tours, and the band was really just kicking ass at that time.
So this might be an ignorant question, but you said it's Eyes of the Stranger. That's the video that got picked up and really changed everything. Wasn't that like the third single from the album? So was it kind of a slow burn release and then eventually it picked up later on the third single, or am I wrong about that being the third single?
Well, we filmed, like, I think 5 or 6 songs, and
Oh.
um, had but it wasn't until that the song that was going to be the push is where all the money came in, and everything from the record label. So Eyes of a Stranger.
That was
I
the
mean,
perfect storm.
right. It was, you know, I mean, there were, yeah, granted, I mean, there were other songs, Revolution Calling, could have been, whatever, but it just had that, massive appeal.
So, it's been a long time since the release of this album. So I just wanted to read through a little bit of the critical acclaim just to remind you of how beloved this album is. So when it came out, the album received widespread acclaim, praising the band's musicianship, Jeff Tate's voice, the complex and well-developed storyline, Peter Collins' production. So a few of the reviews that came out over time. Rock Hard Reviewer remarked how the music featured clever breaks, unusual song structures, and ingenious arrangements, which was an unmistakable sign that the band did not aim to the taste of the masses, but primarily wanted to publish intelligent, artistically demanding albums. Metal Forces stated that the album deserves to stand alongside the likes of The Who's Quadrophenia and Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon for its conceptual brilliance, and lauded Queensryche for injecting new blood into old ideas and stamping their own authority on them. Steve Huey wrote, it's a testament to Queensryche creativity and talent that they can pull off a project of this magnitude. And then it also made a bunch of best of lists. I just want to name a few of them here. It made the list of the top 20 hair metal bands of all metal albums of all time. Again, it's sometimes they say hair metal, sometimes prog metal, whatever. Classic Rock named it among the 10 essential prog metal albums of all time. Loudwire had it on their best metal, had it as the best metal album of 1988. And here are the two big ones for me. Rolling Stone had it on their 100 greatest metal albums of all time. And you mentioned Kerrang gave a good review at the start for the demo. For this album, Kerrang had it number 34 on their 100 greatest heavy metal albums of all time. What is it like as a band where normally critics are pretty harsh? Even if you're good, even if you put out good music, even if you're great musicians, critics can be pretty terrible. What is it like to have an album that seems to just everybody loves it and thinks it's great?
Well, it's amazing. It's something that we took a chance on. Throwing together a conceptual album. In our genre and everything, it was um, it was a chance, and we rolled the dice and came up with something pretty special. And it's to this day, it stands the test of time.
I always talk about the complexity of recording a concept album. Maybe you can touch on that a bit because, man, it's hard for a band just to write one good song. And then it's even harder to write one good album worth of songs. But then to do a concept album where there's a storyline that runs all the way through and the songs have to be in a specific order for it to work. Maybe the best song to start the album is it has to go sixth because of where it is in the story. Like for me, it seems impossible to write, record, and release an album like Operation Mindcrime and actually pull it off to the level of success that you guys pulled off with it.
Yeah, I mean, it was, obviously we had a very, very thorough, writing process that, maintained, like you said, the storyline and how the storyline would branch out into songs and the melding of it. But yeah, we had that outline, that Jeff came up with that was just amazing, and it was just for the rest of us, we just had to put it all together.
So I have a confession that this album is how I discovered the band, and I only discovered it 2 years ago. So I discovered the album 35 years after its release. So I am
Okay.
embarrassed. I apologize. But there's a good story behind this. So I have a series on the podcast called My Five Favorite Albums. So I get the most popular guests, they return and they share their favorite albums of all time. And your album was selected from Rich Bedeau of the multi-platinum band Finger Eleven, and one of his favorite albums of all time. We dove into it over a 2 hour interview, and I reached out to Rich, and he provided some kind words. So I'm going to read these words for you here. So Rich Bedeau from Finger Eleven says, "What an incredible honor to get a chance to write a quote for the powerful Michael Wilton. Queensryche are the reason I am the drummer I am today. They taught me what the relationship between a bass player and a drummer should be, and many may not realize it, but when you listen to the first few Finger Eleven records, you can hear the influence all over them in the rhythm section of the songs. I stood in front of Michael front row at Maple Leaf Gardens on the Empire Tour, where I got to hear Operation Mindcrime in its entirety, and 4 rows back on the Promised Land Tour at Molson Amphitheater. Michael, your songwriting changed my life, and your band is the reason I strive to be better at my craft. I even have a demo tape covering Walk in the Shadows from my high school band. I saw you recently in Lansing, Michigan, and I've gotten to know your drummer a little bit, and you guys are still making incredible music. I hope you realize how profound your music was on the generation that was raised on you. You will go down in history as one of the most prolific players and songwriters of your era. Your band has got me through the good times and the bad times in my life. Your music has educated me and been there with me on many a late night back lounge bus journeys at full volume. The last time I played in Russia, I listened to Promised Land from start to finish on the plane ride, and I was air drumming the whole time. You guys changed my life. Thank you for your contribution to the craft and for making me a better man, Michael. Hope to run into you soon and can't wait for whatever's coming next with you guys. God bless." That's from Rich Bedeau, Finger 11.
It's very kind of him. That's awesome.
And all right, so I have one more thing here. So Rich just mentioned that Finger 11 was influenced by this album and by Queensryche. Other bands, Avenged Sevenfold, Dillinger Escape Plan, have also cited that you guys are a big influence on them. Uh, is it special when you hear that? Just like for you growing up listening to albums and being influenced by Van Halen and being influenced by Led Zeppelin, and you looking to those bands as kind of heroes, that these other bands that have achieved multi-platinum status look to you guys in the same way.
Yeah, I mean that's an honor actually, but we're not really too aware of all that's going on around us. I mean, all the uh, like all the tribute bands and all that. There's so many, and it's just it's mind blowing that that people would want to play your music. You know, it's like wow. But yeah, I mean, it's something that I think like I said in the early days, we were kind of the musicians band, and we made a big impact on other bands. So, and it's still true today.
So with Operation Mindcrime, you guys received your first Grammy nomination. So the song "I Don't Believe in Love" was nominated for Best Metal Performance. What did it mean to you to receive that Grammy nomination? I mean, that's the highest honor that a musician can get, and it's your country acknowledging your talent, your hard work, and your music.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I mean those were great times, big times, and that's when we collided with the public appeal, public taste, basically, and all these great opportunities happened for us, and it was just I've got lots of awards from that era, and it's um, every once in a while you got to pinch yourself and look back at what you've achieved, and you know it's very special. It's we've been doing this 40 years, and I'm still doing what I wanted to do when I was a teenager. So um, but yeah, I think at that time the music industry was just exploding, and the economy was exploding, and um, CDs were now everybody's rebuying everything on a CD, and it's like it was awesome.
Is that an MTV Moon Man behind you there?
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
for one of the
that's
music
the one.
videos?
Yeah.
That's so cool. And what's the plaque behind you?
Let's see, House of Blues in Los Angeles. When you sell it out, they get you a skate deck, and you
That's so cool.
put put the artwork on it.
And then the plaque over your other shoulder looks like it's for a gold or multi-platinum album.
Yeah. Well, this is when it was double platinum. We got these and multi platinum, and the video went platinum, and all those albums are very special.
That's awesome. So one final thing about this album. So Operation Mindcrime is on the list of the best-selling concept albums of all time. And I looked at all the other albums on that list. And man, these are the greatest albums of all time. So you have Pink Floyd, The Wall, and Dark Side of the Moon. You have The Who, Tommy. You have David Bowie, Ziggy Stardust. You have a newer one is My Chemical Romance, and then you have your album. I mean, that's such an incredible list. Is that also just one of the best honors you can get?
Yeah, I mean it's amazing. Now we're in all these metal books that the best metal album of the 80s, and we're in all these lists now, and it's great that people like to write about us. So that's very cool. Yeah, I have some what's it called? I don't know, but we're in it, and it's like, hey, look at that. All right,
Yeah, it's
mainstream, cool.
yeah, it's nice when it's cool to be in magazines or someone to make a list online, but now people are actually making these big physical books, the 500 greatest metal albums of all time and the best concept albums and all that. So it's cool to have, on your table or in your bathroom, a book that you're a part of.
Mhm. It is.
So let's dive into the album Empire, released in 1990. So four singles: Empire, Best I Can, Silent Lucidity, Jet City Woman. This goes three times platinum. So this has sold over 3.5 million copies. Silent Lucidity goes to number one, nominated for two Grammys. My question is, almost no human being will ever achieve this level of success. All the millions of musicians around the world that aspire to be successful, even those that are successful, almost none of them will know what it's like to have a three times platinum album, the Grammy nominations, the number one singles. Can you try to put into words what your life was like at the very peak of Empire, of the singles, of number one, of the Grammy nominations? Let us peasants know what that period of time was like.
We were so busy. We were touring, I think, for uh, over 2 years on that album, and we were doing award shows. Uh, and so what we're feeling, we were exhausted. um, and, uh, and the thing is, it's with Queensryche, we always, with each album, as far as a writing style, we try always do like a 180. We don't want the new album to sound like the last album. We always try and make everything different. And with Empire, it was more about just writing songs, good songs. And at the time, we didn't know what was going to happen. We knew we had some catchy, melodic things, and catchy melodic guitar solos and stuff, um, and then the next thing you know, it's like, wow, we hit a home run. But then, where do you go from there? And it's like, okay, let's do another 180. Let's do the Promised Land. And of course, everybody wanted you to do another Empire, and it's like, oh no, it is what it is.
So in preparation for the Robert Bailey interview, because he had played on this album, I really dove into it. I remember listening to it in its entirety for the first time with a good pair of studio headphones, and my first impression was that it sounded incredible, that the musicianship was world class, and that it was a great collection of songs. Were you guys feeling pressure to follow up the commercial and critical success of Operation Mindcrime before it, or did you feel like that album gave you the leeway to kind of do what you want with this album?
Yeah, I mean, we made a conscious effort to do something different. So I think it's, you don't really have that pressure because you're not doing a continuation of it or trying to write songs like it. And Empire, like, it was just, like I said, we just wanted to write some good songs, and they turned out being pretty badass.
One of the badass songs is "Best I Can." There's different time signatures on that song, as well as a lot of different Queensryche songs. As a musician, is it harder to play songs in different time signatures? Like, do you have to consciously think about it while you're playing, or does it just feel as natural as a different time as a normal time signature to you?
That's kind of just how we've always done it. You know, we, um, we just want to make the music interesting for ourselves as well as the people that listen to it. So it's like we throw little things in here and there just to keep it interesting, and um, but not to the point where it's overbearing or too progressive or anything. It's just uh, bits to make uh, the music not so pedestrian, I guess. And so we put exciting little turnarounds, pushes, uh, you know, different time signatures every once in a while, but we don't overdo it.
So there's a lot of great harmonies on that album. Does hearing and singing harmonies come easy to you from the start, or is that something you've had to work on, just like working on your guitar playing and your songwriting?
No, it's just like how we've always done it. We listen to the part that we're gonna solo over, and you just you just hear it in your head and just transfer it to your fingers, and You know, you just keep building and building and until you get it right.
And I've mentioned Peter Collins a few times. How important was he to the recording of those two albums, Operation Mindcrime and Empire?
He was he kept us, on track. Sometimes we like to go on these tangents as let's do something crazy here. He kind of kept everything, we were corralled, and kind of kept us in this focus, and that he was so great at that, and he had a lot of good ideas for breaks and song parts, and he was very meticulously organized. He said if we get to a point, we stop, and he was very organized, and he had to be because Jimbo was wild on the
You had the yin
on
and
the
the yang
mixing
there.
console. He was like, okay, let's try this. Let's do this backwards. Let's do, it's um, he just kind of kept us in line.
So we have a fan question here. This is from Gina Marie. Her question is, was there a specific time where you had reservations about your writing and decided to just throw caution to the wind? If so, what song became the result, whether it was successful or not? So any time where you're not too sure about something and you go with it anyways.
Well, here's the deal in songwriting. I mean, you have good ones and you have other ones that are not so good. So you just pick the ones that everybody agrees on, and I'm sure everybody has writer's block, and uh, people get too burned out from the road and don't want to write, and but it's just um, for me. I try and write a little bit every day. I'm always tinkering around, and I get something stuck in my head. I run to this room and record it before I forget it. And that's, I think I don't want to give the guys something that I think is, not so good. I want to give them something that kicks ass, right? And so I don't know. I mean, to her question, I think the bad ones, we already know what they are, and they go by the wayside. And they they may get dissected or something. There may be one little cool bit in there that you can build on, but for the most part, we just move on and just bring your A game.
So across your entire discography, there's like an unfathomable about amount of incredible guitar riffs and solos. Do you have a computer or a hard drive or a phone that just has a ridiculous amount of guitar riffs and ideas that you're kind of picking from as you go to make a new album?
Well, the last few albums that we've kind of wanted to write fresh, so kind of on the spot. So I'm not looking at anything I've done in the past. I'm looking at uh, just the inspiration of the day, and getting something recorded, and you know live with it for a couple days, and then come back and go, okay, yeah, this is pretty cool, or nah, I'm gonna delete this. But I think it's something that is special to a group of guys, that everything that you create is new, or kind of new. We're probably ripping ourselves off blind, with all the riffs and melodies, but um, that seems to be the fresh approach. I mean, it's uh, the stuff that goes by the wayside, that's stuff that goes on solo albums.
So in 1994, you guys released the album Promised Land. This is the album that Rich Beto said he listened to in its entirety while flying to Russia. Um, there's so on the album, songs like I Am I, there's kind of like an Eastern sounding guitar on it. Where does that worldly sound come from as an influence for you? You mentioned back in college that teachers were bringing in stuff that wasn't your standard instrument or standard sound. Does it go all the way back to the college days?
I think it goes back to your influences. I mean the Beatles, they had a lot of Eastern stuff, and Yes was very progressive, and you I think you just you pull from all those bits that uh, of influences that made an impact on you creatively, and um, I think that's part of the joy of recording is coming up with something like I Am I. it's an interesting song. Um, but yeah, I think it's at that point in time. It's we're growing older. Everybody's changing a little bit here and there, and the influences are coming from you know different avenues, and so it's you, somebody's got to keep it together.
Yes, absolutely.
Otherwise, you start writing stuff that uh, nobody can understand.
So you guys have lots of songs in your discography that are quite long, songs like Promised Land that are 8 minutes long or more. How do you decide if a song should be 4 minutes or 8 minutes? Does the song itself speak to you and tell you, hey, we should add more parts or we should add a longer solo or a jam section?
It just happens. It's something that where you have a body of work, and it's like um, everybody feels that it could have another part put on, and then another part, and then another part, and pretty soon you have a 8 to 10 minute song. But yeah, it just kind of depends on the what you got in the recipe.
So I wanted to point out that one of my favorite songs on that album is One More Time. I just love the groove between the drums, the bass, acoustic guitar, the electric guitar. And we have a fan question sent in from Michael Dojak. His question is, when did you realize that Queensryche would sustain you for life, both creatively and financially? That's a good question.
um, we've had pockets of our career which were very profitable, and then we've had times where it hasn't been. So um, it's it's something you got to really put a lot of effort into, and sometimes you get rewarded, and sometimes you don't, unfortunately. But um, I mean, to this day, it's like the industry has changed so much, so drastically since when we started, and everything is fragmented. With the internet, it's like you got this kind of music over here, this kind of music over here, this kind of music over here. It's like you know, in the '80s we got a guitar magazine. We knew everything from magazines, and you had radio stations that played what everybody wanted to hear. It wasn't pre-programmed or anything. It was now it's quite different. It's and I think one thing that bands that are still doing this is obviously you have to adapt. And it's like a lot of bands don't want to tour anymore. Because it's traveling's too hard on them because they've gotten older, or um, it costs too much money to make a record, or um, yeah, I mean, you get to a point where I think, as I grew up in my family and everything, you learn to live within your means, and we get by. We're not extravagantly rich or anything like that. We make a decent living, and we love what we do. Um, you know, the It'd be nice if people bought records again, because then it'd be uh, a lot better for bands. But yeah, I think to make this a career, it's you got to be creative, and you've got to for us, we have our longevity. We have our lineage. It's like you said, we have a Chinese menu of songs. It's and it doesn't hurt that we had radio hits in the '90s, and um, that helps. So, but yeah, it's tough out there right now. It's very tough, and it's fragmented. It's scattered. It's um, you know it's harder for bands to survive now.
Hmm. In 2006, you guys release Operation Mindcrime 2. So this is the sequel to your beloved album. I wanted to ask you about Ronnie James Dio. So he plays the role of Dr. X on that album. And, I remember flying back from Cuba. I watched a documentary on Ronnie James Dio. Man, this guy was so inspiring, so talented. What a powerful vocalist. You guys, I mentioned you guys way back around the EP, you got to open for Dio. I think it was a hometown show for you guys. And then to have him on this album all those years later, what did that mean to you? And was that kind of a full circle moment?
Oh man, he was just the coolest. I mean, the nicest guy. Uh, he was just amazing to hang around with. He had so many stories, and what a voice, just a commanding voice. So cool. So yeah, he was such a influence and a friend, and it was great to have him be a part of what we do, and because we were always a part of what he did. So yeah, that was a very special time.
So a year after that album, you guys put out a cover album called Take Cover. I heard that each member got to choose two songs to put on that album, or two songs to cover. Uh, if that's true, which two songs did you choose that ended up on the album?
Well, I think that everybody kind of chose some of the ones, but yeah, I think Synchronicity, I think, was like Scott's, and yeah, it it was a time in our career that it's like, okay, let's do something interesting. Let's do this. Let's do that. I mean, and there were some interesting tunes on there. Um, Queen, and so I mean, it was we put that out, and it kind of made a splash, but it wasn't. People want to hear original Queensryche music. You know, we got a lot of that. Why are you doing covers? Why are you doing this? But
I mean, you guys had already put out so many albums of original music. It's like a year later you put out another original album. You can't get a break where people can just appreciate some covers for a year.
no, they want new Queensryche music always.
Well, it's good that you have diehard fans like that, right?
Yeah, yeah, it is.
That's funny. So after that album, you put out six more albums. what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump ahead just because, we have, I don't know, 38 minutes left or something. I really want to dive into the new album because I love it. I think it's great. You have a solo album. There's an upcoming tour. So if it's okay with you, we'll jump ahead to Digital Noise Alliance. So this came out
Perfect.
2022. Okay, great. So three singles: In Extremis, Boris, Behind the Walls. Man, I thought all three singles were great. I thought they were awesome. I thought the album sounded great. As an audio engineer, I thought there's a warmth to the album. It's a very pleasant listen. So even though it's heavy and it rocks, the way it's recorded, whether it's the engineering, the producing, the mixing, the mastering, something about it just has this warmth. It feels great listening to this album. Can you touch on maybe what led to it sounding so great? I don't know if you want to credit some engineers or some producers or something like
Well,
that.
I think that, obviously working with Zeus, helps. He's the guy that keeps everything organized. But, DNA was uh, an album that we kind of wanted to go back to our roots in the style that we were writing. We wanted to write all new music. We wanted to write it all with everybody in the room, giving their input. And, whether it was, a guitar riff or a bass riff or a vocal melody or a drum beat, we created from the bare necessity of an idea and built everything. And I think that has a lot to do because you have everybody's input. And I think that just made it, yeah, and it was because it was fresh. It was fresh ideas. I think that just made it a nicer, better sounding record. And people say it's more cohesive, and it's like, well, we wrote it as a band, and it's that simple. This wasn't a bunch of demos that we emailed to each other and then had to learn or relearn or that kind of thing. This was all just created out of the air, and we because back in the day, what did we do? We'd go in the basement and we'd show each other riffs and we'd build songs like that, and if we were lucky that somebody had a little 4-track, we'd record it, and next day we'd come in, new ideas, everybody's together. And that's kind of what we did on DNA. But now you got technology. Now you got computers that you can organize everything and don't have to worry about remembering the great riff you just played. You can go on to something else. So, and I think, I don't know, maybe because it has the spirit of the way we used to do things. Maybe that's what makes it warm sounding to you. I don't
Yeah,
know.
maybe you can feel the excitement of a band that wants to be there and is excited to write these songs and work together with their friends.
And that's what being in a band is all about. You're with your mates, and everybody's got their input into it. Everybody's like vibing on what you're creating, and that's what you don't know what it is, right? It's all subjective, right? So, and to come together with these ideas, that's what makes being in a band fun.
So for our listeners who might not be familiar with Chris Zeus Harris, he also produced Rob Zombie, Hatebreed, Soulfly. You've done several albums with him now. What is it about him that keeps you guys bringing him back?
He knows how everybody plays. He knows how everybody pretty much writes, and I trust him. I trust him with my music, my riffs, my guitar playing. I mean, he's the conquistador right now. He's the guy.
That's awesome. So this is that's the first album to feature drummer Casey Grillo, who does, man, he does great work on songs like In Extremis, Behind the Walls, and Tormentum. I found that the drums on this album really stand out. And what has he brought to the band as a new member? Even I mean, he's been there for years, but as a new member on that album.
I mean, besides just drumming input, he has ideas, vocal melody ideas. He brings like a fresh approach, to putting a song together. He has good input. It's not about just him playing the drums and go have a vacation. It's it's about being there and being a part of it. And he's awesome. He is a very talented player and has a great feel for what we do.
So I was able to infiltrate the Queensryche camp, and I got a quote from Casey himself. So Casey
Yeah,
says, Whip is more than just an incredible guitar player. He's family. From the moment I started working with Queensryche nearly 8 years ago, he's treated me like a brother. His loyalty, talent, and heart are undeniable, both on and off the stage. So that's from Casey.
yeah, and that's again, when you're in a band with guys that are very creative, you have to get along as well, and that's half the battle right there. If you got a guy that's great but he's a dick, that's no fun for everybody, right?
That's no
So
no bueno, no bueno.
yeah, so it's all about uh, the music, obviously, and but how you all get along. We're all civil and friends, so.
So the album has been getting some great reviews, including one from Blabbermouth. They gave the album an 8.5 out of 10, and they wrote Digital Noise Alliance promises to increase the momentum that has propelled them this far. It's a real joy to hear them back on such consistent top form. The glorious comeback keeps on coming. So that's from Blabbermouth. And then we had a fan question. David Corrigan asks, do you feel that the band's songwriting reached a new level when Todd joined?
Oh yeah, totally. I mean, he brought an element. He's more than just a vocalist. He's a drummer. He can play keyboards. He can play guitar. He can do it all. Right. So he's and the guy grew up playing drums to the Warning album. It's he's got a history with Queensryche in the past, and so he fits perfect with us. So a great talent.
So I have a fan question that I thought was kind of funny. So it's from Dog Holmes One on Instagram. The question is, are there more official videos in the works? So I found that funny because you guys made 8 music videos for this album already. So this is a
Uh,
fan that, again, just an unquenchable thirst from this fan.
it's I'm sure when we figure this all out on the next one, uh, the videos will come. We've got a friend here in Tampa, Florida, that Kill Devil Films, and he likes our style, and so it's a matter of getting these out and to prolong the release of your album, because let's face it, the record company blows their wad in like a month, and that's it. And then so by doing this, we're prolonging the release of the album by putting videos out every 2 or 3 months. And so it's a marketing tool, and it's also something that just keeps the album alive.
So even though we've been focusing on Queensryche, man, your career, you've had done all these other projects, including a solo album that came out just a few months ago. So I want to touch on that. I want to acknowledge it at least. So you released Whip Volume One. So you're going under the nickname Whip, which is awesome. So this is 9 songs that came out in December. Uh, th- my I listened to it in its entirety, and this is also metal, but it's a different metal than Queensryche. For our listeners that haven't gone and checked out that album yet, which we're going to send them to do that, how would you describe the type of metal or the sound of this solo album?
Well, it's more rock based, I guess, and these are song ideas that don't really have that Queensryche flair, um, and so I think it's more a reflection of just my personality in writing. Like I said, I try and write every day. Not all of it is for Queensryche. Some of it, I've got influences everywhere, so I might sound like something that's more Beatlesque or something that's more Thin Lizzy or something that's not Queensryche. And so when you listen to this, obviously it's not operatic high pitched vocals. It's just rock vocals. It's melodic, and it's me. So, uh, but um, over the years, you do all these albums and you have all these songs that may not been right for the mood of that album, and they just compile on in your hard drives and thumb drives and iPhones and so I'm in my 60s now, and I'm just gonna rework them and release them. And I've already got the next one mapped out.
I was going to say you probably have several albums worth of
I
content that you
do,
could go
and
through.
yeah. So yeah, I'm going for it. And people like it, so. And then maybe I don't know. The guys are from Seattle. We met. Um, they have at this Mexican restaurant burrito night, and we would meet at burrito night and just hang and talk. And I said, "You guys, are you good enough? You want to maybe play on my solo album?" And that's how we met.
I got to start hanging out at burrito places more often, I think. That's too cool. As a guitarist, I thought it was awesome that every song on this solo album has a badass guitar solo. If the
Well, really?
No, I know, but every single song, like I was happy that I could rock out to every song on this album. If the video game Guitar Hero came to you and said, "We want just one song from the solo album to include in an upcoming Guitar Hero game that people can shred along to on a plastic guitar," which song do you think you would choose?
uh, Getaway or Reason to Fight.
I think they could do a game just with all nine songs, but
Yeah, you could.
yeah, that's awesome. So I'm hearing rumors of a potential new Queensryche album. Is there any truth to this, or is this fake news? What is this? What am I hearing? Is this erroneous on all accounts?
Well,
What's
we
going on?
do we do have one record left with our contract with Century Media and Sony. So and yeah, we're putting together demos right now. So when will it get done? I don't know. It's Queensryche has a lot of touring to do, and you got to schedule with your producer. So, but yeah, we've started writing demos, and we've got a good bunch of tunes, and uh, we're about ready to head to Europe, and then we do the Monsters of Rock cruise, and then we're heading to South America, and then after that, maybe we can concentrate a little more on the next Queensryche record.
So because you're in the early stages where it's more writing the songs, it's recording some demos to flesh them out, nowhere near going into the studio yet. Are you thinking this would be at least 2026 or later?
We don't know. Uh,
That's fair. I have to
Obviously,
ask on behalf of the
as
fans,
somebody that you know, just because it's harder to find pockets of time where we can develop this. We're always touring or on the road doing weekend gigs or whatever. So, but we'll just see where this takes us.
And Will Zeus be back producing this one?
Yeah. Well, he's already, committed to helping the demos getting written. So yeah, he's back.
So I was wondering, with a career that spans over 40 years, was it hard not to be influenced by the music that was kind of the big thing at the time? So you've seen it everywhere from, grunge is big and then new metal and then hip hop and then EDM. Did you ever feel the influence of being pulled towards those things? Like how hard was it to stay true to your actual original sound?
Yeah, I stay away from the trends. I don't, I respect what everybody does, but I'm on my path and I know what I like. And I think, um, it's that kind of stuff is great for what they do, but I've already got it laid out for me.
So you're telling me you never once felt the need to put out a solo hip hop album? Maybe your stage name would be Little Whippy or something. No, never?
No, it's look, I don't have time to do anything. It's to it's like I brought up, fishing. Hey, you want to go fishing? No, because it's going to take up too much of my time. It's like I have enough time. I have enough on my plate, with Queensryche, writing, and family, and that's it.
Well, you got your priorities straight, which is good, right?
Well, it should be family then Queensryche.
Well, we weren't putting them in the actual order,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
so we have the last few fan questions here. So this is from Beth Norris Hill. Her question is, I'd love to know your view on how you gel with the current lineup and how that personal and creative process differs from the original lineup. And then I just want to mention, you said there's a bunch of Queensryche tribute bands. So she's in one from Minnesota called Queen of the Reich.
Oh, nice. Um, well, on this album, it's going to be nice because I'm writing with Mike Stone. So when we started writing the DNA, I was the only guitar player, and then he came in later. So now, as far as writing now, I think it's going to be a strong record, very strong.
So I would like to focus the rest of the interview on the live shows. So you guys have a massive tour coming up. So
Mhm.
this month, in a few days, I don't even know what day it is today, but January 31st, you guys kick off the European and UK leg of the Origins tour. Can you share with our listeners why it's called the Origins tour?
Sure. It's basically it's the EP, which was our first release, and the warning in its entirety, and in chronological order. And it was an idea that a promoter threw at us in Texas. It was the Hell's Heroes festival, and he offered our management, say, hey, hey, what would you think about Queensryche playing the warning in its entirety? And so, we thought about it and threw it back and forth, and then we go, well, let's see if we can make a tour out of it. Well, here we are today. I mean, all last year we did two legs on it, and now we're taking it to Europe. It's something that is great. Um, but and we're getting a lot of people that go, well, are you going to do this with Rage for Order? Are you going to do this with Empire? I don't know. I think we're going to do this and then concentrate on the next album.
So if our listeners right now go and buy a ticket to this upcoming tour, what can they expect when they see you guys live? So you mentioned what music you'll be playing, but as far as I don't know, visuals or just anything you can share about what the experience is like, that if they've never seen the band before, period.
Well, I mean, listening to the album is great, but seeing it live, I mean, it's a different animal, and the energy is different, and you know, it's it's well worth to see and hear. And I think we have some props and things like that, but it's the music. The music speaks, and you get some people coming out that are from that era, that are curious. They maybe they heard the warning when they were in college, or what, whatever, and so it's really amazing for us. I mean, it's a multi-age audience. We get lots of young kids now that are curious, and then we get the diehards.
And you can see that from the stage when you look at the crowd.
Yeah, they're you can tell old like us.
So when I looked at all your upcoming dates, you have after that tour, you have some non-UK, non-Europe dates, including there's one date in Canada in Vancouver. As a Canadian, I'm curious if there's any plans in the future for maybe an Ottawa or Montreal date, or did I miss that on the last leg of the tour?
Well, here's the deal. I mean, we have the possibility to do a full Canadian tour. I mean, there's so many places to play, right? So, and we like it, and
Just don't come in the winter. It's too cold for you.
right. That's the main thing. But so I think that's something that we're going to be concentrating on, um, just because there's so many great musical cities, and um, but yeah, we haven't played Vancouver in a long time, so that'll be that. I got a lot of friends in Vancouver, so that'll be a good time.
So we have a fan question here, and to set that up, over the years, you guys have toured with some of the biggest bands in rock and metal. I mean, the list here is wild: Iron Maiden, Guns N' Roses, Metallica, Judas Priest, Def Leppard. The fan question from George Weisbrod, definitely butchered that name. His question is, what was your favorite band to tour with as Queensryche on the bill with other bands?
I mean, there were numerous great ones. Obviously, Dio, because he was such a gentleman, and gave us anything that we wanted, and but also the Metallica and Justice for All tour. That was great, because we got to experience the whole Metallica scene, and got to hang with the guys, and had a great time. So I think probably those two are probably you know, and then recently, Judas Priest, Rob Halford's awesome. So uh, great bands to tour with.
So we have our final two fan questions. So JW Shaw asks, of all the world tours and places visited, is there one wild, crazy night that sticks in your memory to this day? And if suitable, details, please.
Uh, I mean,
Any PG-13 stories or any nights that
you
were
know,
memorable?
every tour is an adventure. But yeah, I mean, it's we've had great times. The bigger festivals like Wacken, uh, the Monsters of Rock festivals. In the '90s through Europe, Rock in Rio. Um, yeah, so
Do those feel like a reunion with the other musicians that you've been friends with over the years and other bands?
yeah, on some of them, it's like in South America, we're doing the Monsters of Rock festivals down there, and that's Judas Priest and Scorpions. So we'll get to see them again.
So, final question. This is from Brandon Barnett. His question is, looking back on your 40-year career, is there anything you would change or anything that you regret?
I wouldn't change anything. It is what it is, and I made it what it is. If I screwed up, I screwed up, but I wear it on my sleeve. You know. And as far as everything that was written, it was needed to get to where we are today. So, um, yeah, I wouldn't redo anything.
So just a few more questions. This is a hypothetical. So let's say it's the distant future. I don't know, it's 100 years from now, and most of today's music has dissipated, no longer available. People aren't aware of it. However, one Queensryche song is still being played. People are still listening to it. What song would you choose that you think best represents the band? Doesn't have to be the biggest single, but just I don't know if it's your favorite
Uh,
Queensryche song or what you just think would be best to represent.
maybe Empire. Maybe they're building a new empire in the future. Who knows?
Oh, so it's more of like an anthem for that time. Okay. I wanted to do kind of a career retrospective because sometimes, like you mentioned, when I asked what life was like at the peak of popularity around the Empire album, and you're like, look, we were just they were working us so hard. It was just one day at a time, working the band and looking forward. So I like to give a retrospective. So I'm gonna break down the band's career very quickly. So you guys released 16 studio albums, 5 live albums, 5 compilation albums, 7 video albums, and 1 EP. 34 music videos and 36 singles. Now, here are some accomplishments: 20 singles charted, 11 albums were certified gold, platinum, or multi platinum, over 30 million albums sold, and nominated for 3 Grammys. So, if you think all the way back to recording that 4 song demo as teenagers, could you ever have imagined the level of success that you actually achieved over this 40 plus year career?
No, not at all. We had no clue. Like I said, we just took advantage of opportunities and believed in ourselves, and we worked hard, and things happened.
So, with that crazy list of accomplishments, do you have any dreams in your heart that you still haven't attained that you're working towards, or are you a man fulfilled after all these years?
I mean, I'm always thinking in the future. What am I going to do next? So yeah, I mean, more Queensryche albums and more Whip albums.
Final 2 questions. When you look back on your life and career, what are you most proud of, and what are you most grateful for?
uh, I'm proud that I stuck with it, and obviously the awards and the achievements I'm very grateful for. That's uh, that says it all.
And if you could go back in time and you could sit down next to your 10-year-old self and you could whisper words of advice. So taking all the years since being 10 years old, all the lessons and the mentorship and the leadership and experiences and the highs and lows and goals achieved and failures, if you could take everything and whisper words of advice into cute little Mike's ear, what do you tell him to help guide him through this human life, this human experience?
Wow. I mean, just try not to get too distracted because you're going to get way too distracted, and start honing in on your skills now.
Get to work.
And here's a little advice: your baseball career is not going to last.
Break his little heart, but set him up for a career as a successful musician.